Saudara Azri, ahli-ahli panel yang dihormati, para hadirin yang budiman, salam sejahtera, peace be with you. I'd like to begin by thanking Zubedy, both the Zubedy brothers, the cousins, and of course the organization for this very kind invitation. There is a tendency to regard youths as the pace setters of society, especially after what has happened in North Africa. In Tunisia, in Egypt, you'll find that there are a lot of people now who are saying youths will shape our future more than in the past. This is true to a great extent. It applies to our country as to many other countries in this region. We have a young population, and that's one of our similarities with the societies in North Africa, very young population. And this young population will undoubtedly play a major role in shaping the future of this nation. For this nation, there is no future without national unity, which means, logically, our youth will have to bear the burden of bringing the different communities together. This would be their greatest challenge. Will our youth be able to respond to this challenge? And this is the question that I'll try to address this morning. We must be realistic about the attitudes and values of young people in relation to national unity. They are bound to reflect the prejudices, the stereotypes, the misgivings, the fears, the hopes, the aspirations, which are part of the larger society. This is something which one takes as a given. This is how it is. They will reflect those sentiments and those feelings that you will find in the larger society. Because they reflect the sentiments and feelings of the larger society, one of the biggest obstacles to unity in this country, one of the biggest obstacles to unity in this country is present amongst the youth. And what is that obstacle? There are very few people in Malaysia, very, very few people in Malaysia who you can describe as bridge builders. That, to my mind, is the biggest obstacle to unity in this country. We have a lot of people who are ethnic heroes, who champion their own community, or who think they're championing the interests of their own community. You have a lot of people who project ethnic sentiments but camouflaged in the language of human rights and social justice, when basically it's ethnicity that they're concerned about. This is the reality. A lot of young people also like that. But you have very, very few people who, number one, understand their own community well. Because if you're talking of a bridge builder, you know, the process of building a bridge, you must be sure that both ends of the bridge would be strong, otherwise you don't have a bridge. This is why one of the prerequisites is understanding one's own community well in trying to build unity. You cannot just represent the interests of the elite in your community and think that you're talking for the community. You must understand your community well. Its fears, its hopes, its prejudices, everything that is there in a particular community. You can't run away from it. Number one, you have to understand your own community. Number two, you should be able to understand the other. And that is as important, perhaps more important. How the other feels, meaning by which the other community, how do they feel? How do they feel about certain policies Why do they react in a certain way? You have to try to put yourself in their shoes. It's a very big challenge. This is one of the greatest challenges that human beings have had to face right through history, trying to really understand the other. It is at the most basic level in a relationship between a man and a woman, between a parent and a child. It's basically understanding the other. And what more at the level of communities? Malays understanding Chinese, Chinese understanding the Indians, all the communities on the peninsula understanding our Kadazan sisters and brothers, our sisters and brothers among the Iban communities. We've never really tried to do it. In fact, some of us, when it comes to Sabah and Sarawak, we unwittingly refer to them as foreigners. You hear people saying things like, I have to go to Sabah and Sarawak, I suppose, sometimes when you've got passports and things like that, that reinforces this mentality that it is somehow not your own country. I went to some foreign country and came back. That sort of mentality. So understanding the other is very, very important. The religion, culture, the economy, their politics, that's very, very critical. And number three, in the context of a society like ours, which is one of the most multi-ethnic, multi-religious societies in the world, we have to try to forge, based upon our understanding of our own community and our understanding of the other community, we try to forge a vision of this nation that is truly multi-ethnic. A vision that is truly multi-ethnic, all-embracing, all-encompassing, a vision that is truly inclusive. And that is a very, very important concept for this nation. We have to be inclusive. We cannot be exclusive. You have to have a vision of this nation that is truly inclusive. In other words, not just inclusive in terms of communities and religions, inclusive in terms of different social categories, of different types of people. You have to be truly inclusive. That's very important. The poor, the powerless, the oppressed, the marginalized in society, those who are different from us in all sorts of ways. We have to be truly inclusive. So developing an inclusive vision, an inclusive mindset, that is very, very critical. So I see these as the three very important attributes that we have to have. Understanding ourselves, understanding the other, and developing this shared, universal, inclusive vision of what Malaysia is. Friends, in order to develop that sort of vision, in order to understand oneself and understand the other, there is something that we have to do that we seldom do when it comes to ethnic issues in particular. Ethnic issues being ethnic issues, we tend to react emotionally most of the time. We tend to react based upon sentiment, based upon our baggage, whatever our baggage is. But what we have to do, and this is particularly important when it comes to ethnic and religious issues, we have to learn to think. Thinking is very, very important. It doesn't come naturally to us human beings. Thinking is something that one has to learn. One has to develop this very important attribute. Think, reflect. Don't just follow the crowd. Don't just echo sentiments which are being echoed by some powerful people in society or those who are making the loudest noise. You have to reflect. You have to think. You have to reflect. And this is particularly critical, friends, when it comes to issues pertaining to religion. Because religion, which has been important all along in our society, even before Merdeka, even if you look at early records, the beginning of the 20th century, issues pertaining to religion have been important, but they have become even more important in the last few years. Religion, it seems to me, friends, is going to become the next major fault line in Malaysian society. Issues pertaining to religion. If you look back at our short history of 53 years, at the beginning, right at the time of Merdeka, the major fault line was citizenship. Many of us here will not